It's Javi Reyes, the host with the most, as I paraphrase Beetlejuice. Ladies and gentlemen, Javi Reyes, who is the host of Locked On Padres, where he covers all year round your San Diego Padres. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing pretty fantastic, all things considered, with my team. That is greatly underachieving, I think, because overall, look, one, it's the end of August. Finally, the dog days of summer, dare I say, are in its waning moments. So I'm very happy about that. And bottom line is it's good to be out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good to be out
Well,
here.
we're recording this on the evening of August 24th, 2022. And the Padres played a home game against the Cleveland Guardians, and Cal Quantrill started for the Guardians. Blake Snell started. Is that the correct term of what he did for San Diego? Let's just say that for 6 of the 9 innings, the Cleveland Guardians did not score. I'm trying to see the glasses half full. The final score was 7-0. If and the one and again, I'm trying to be positive. If the Padres had forfeited the game and not shown up, the final score would have officially been 9-0. So they did better than if they didn't show up. But Jose Ramirez homered. It was not a pretty day, and Cal Quantrill pitched quite well. Thank you very much. Final score was 7 Cleveland, and that's the end of that series. I don't know. I'm going to MLB.com, and I do believe that this show, which is probably going to drop on the 25th, the Padres are idle. So again, I'm seeing the glass is half full. The Padres will not lose on Thursday. So tell before we go on to some of the minutia, what happened today with this blowout in Petco?
I think Blake Snell just had an off day, and for the most part of the second half of the season, Blake Snell has been pretty awesome. It does come at a poor time, though. I think for Blake Snell, who faced a pretty good Cleveland team that's very patient. You've got guys like Steven Kwan in that lineup. Obviously, you have Ramirez, like you mentioned. Um, what's his name? Andres Jimenez, which is amazing trade
Yeah,
return for the
yeah.
Cleveland Guardians, considering they trade Lindor. Lindor obviously still better, but if you're going to trade a star, then that's been a pretty great return for them.
And they got
And
Rosario in that trade as well.
mhm,
I mean, they wound up
yeah,
getting a middle of the infield for in that deal. So
yeah, they're killing it out there in Cleveland. I think that they should have done more at the deadline, but nonetheless, they're set up pretty good. And I do think that overall, Cleveland is not. The AL Central last year, the White Sox might have been an AL Central merchant, just kind of beating up on a lot of really poor teams. Minnesota was one of the worst in baseball last year. Cleveland was just kind of meh; they were a little mediocre. And then you had Kansas City, and then you
and
had
Detroit,
whoever the heck is in that division. I forgot even the last name. The
Detroit,
Detroit Tigers.
Detroit.
That's right. That's why I can't even remember them because they're just so bad, right? But
Right.
this year, I actually think Cleveland is just a genuinely really good team.
Yeah.
But even with all that said, it's not you can't really excuse everything from the Pods here. They played horribly. They only scored one run in this two-game set, and I think that the issue with the team is you're kind of seeing a lot of the mojo seems to already have been gone from the trade deadline. And that's not to say that they're done. That means that it didn't work and that it was a bad trade and blah, blah, blah. Because Juan Soto himself has been fantastic. And it is worth noting that he did not play in these two games with a little bit of a back injury.
Right.
So even with that said, though, the Padres are kind of showing you and reminding you that, yeah, it's still a full season that needs to be played. And they need to step up offensively. Brandon Drury, Josh Bell, Bell a little bit heating up lately. He had two home
Mhm.
runs in the last series that they played against the Nats, which was nice. He had a couple singles in this one. But overall, it's just not a combined team effort. Not to mention, again, with the bad vibes, Tatis' suspension. The Goober,
Yeah.
as I'm going to be calling him from now on my podcast, the Goober guy. Just that feels like it killed a lot of the momentum, and there's a lot of guys that are struggling right now. I don't think they're done at all
Oh
because
no.
Milwaukee doesn't scare me at all. I think that team is boring, and I just don't under. If you play them in the playoffs, I think congratulations to moving on to the next round. But I think that there's definitely some concern that they gave up a lot of assets at the deadline, so you have to wonder whether or not they have the flexibility to make changes in the future.
Well, first of all, this is going to be a strange sentence for you to hear, but I want you to buckle up for it. The thing that should make you happy right now is the Los Angeles Dodgers are playing Milwaukee, and Milwaukee
Hmm.
is the team that is directly behind San Diego for the third wild card spot. And as of this recording, the game is not over, and those of you listening will probably be hearing it after the game is over. But Los Angeles is up 4-1 over Milwaukee, which is good news for San Diego. It is a surreal few weeks when a team supposedly wins the trade deadline.
Hmm.
Then you think they're just going to go on a massive run. It appears that the team that won, as of right now, it appears the team that won the trade deadline is St. Louis,
Hmm.
who did not trade their assets for Juan Soto, stole Montgomery
Yep.
from the Yankees, traded for Quintana, and save for one bad start by Quintana. I mean, Montgomery's been a Cy Young contender for St.
Hmm.
Louis, and Quintana has pitched quite well. Albert Pujols suddenly thinks it's 2009,
Hmm.
and they all of a sudden the Cardinals look like they're going to be a World Series contender, and I think partly because they fortified the team with the trades that they made at the deadline. Of course, San Diego made all the big headlines because obviously the Juan Soto trade was significant. But lest we forget, for the first time since 2014, a team which at the time was in a playoff spot traded away one of their all stars. The last time it happened was when the A's traded away Yoenis Cespedes to Boston in the John Lester deal, and the A's were the best record in the American League at the time, almost missed the postseason after that trade.
Hmm.
And now the Brewers trade away Josh Hader, and they have fallen out of the playoff spot. The lesson is if you're a playoff contender, don't trade away your all stars. But that being said, Josh Hader has been a big pile of nothing.
Yeah.
And when that trade was made what, August 1st, August 2nd, whenever the trade was made, I guarantee you no one was thinking in 3 weeks the Padres will be in a bullpen by committee. They
Hmm.
thought they were getting their biggest closer probably since Heath Bell.
Hmm.
And instead, what they've got is, well, let's just do the matchups and see who the best reliever is at that point for a guy
Hmm.
they gave him 5 players for.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. The Josh Hader trade, because people would get mad at me. Hey, man, you love the Soto trade. It is true. I did love the Soto trade, although I did think that they
As
had
did
to
I.
do it. I think everyone loved it, and I still love it. I still think you make that trade 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10. Um, I actually am on record for saying I gave the Hater trade like a B, and I gave the Hater trade a B for a bunch of different reasons. Not because I saw something and I thought that his recent blowups were a sign that he was done. I don't honestly know enough about Josh Hader to know that his 6 inning blowups right before the deadline that was a sign of trouble potentially to come. It was something worth bringing up, but still, for me, the two big components of this is that I actually thought the Padres bullpen wasn't that bad when you take into account one, yes, their ERA at the time of the trade was like 15th in the league, which isn't great, but their FIP was 8th. And when you take that into account, combined with the fact that guys like Drew Pomeranz, guys like Pierce Johnson, right? Like there were some guys that were injured. Austin Adams, assuming he doesn't hit every player with the ball, like good, solid relievers that you've been performing, like you're okay, right? So for me, my thing was go after some of these guys on Miami, go after some random guys over on Boston that you might like,
Right.
go and find decent relievers that maybe will just be a little bit better than your Tim Hills and what have you, right? And instead, they decided to go big. They decided to try and get a shutdown closer, and he has not been that. And the other reason that I was nervous is despite my hatred for the Milwaukee Brewers, like believe me, I hate the Milwaukee Brewers. I cannot stand a team that just doesn't try and doesn't have a high payroll, and they're like, we're good. Corbin Burns isn't a free agent for a while, but it doesn't matter. Our big move will be Andrew McCutcheon, and we're going to profane competition for years, right? They don't miss on trades, though, right? Like that was a big thing that concerned me. So they traded him and he became kind of available quickly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it was like 3 weeks before, then he had the blow, and all of a sudden Josh Hader, the Milwaukee might. I was like, this is a little bit odd. It was just a little bit odd to me. So, well, don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting him to still continue to be as disastrous as he's been, like a 21 ERA or whatever the heck have you. But those were two things that made me a little bit concerned about the trade, where I was like, did you need to do this? Or could you have just gone and got, Pablo Lopez of the Orioles for a little bit less? Right? Like Dylan Tate of the Orioles, just these okay relievers. And now you're seeing that the Padres, maybe they got a little bit too trigger happy with that one.
Yeah, and a lot of times you see that moves that really pan out for teams that want to make postseason runs sometimes are trading for a pitcher who has been okay, who suddenly gets a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of juice of, oh, there's a reason
Yeah.
to go to the ballpark, and
Jordan
you don't
Montgomery.
need them to get like you mentioned Montgomery right now. The Cardinals don't need him to pitch like Greg Maddux for
Yeah.
162 games. They need him to be very good for 2 months. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe a reliever who is in a moribund situation in Miami or with the Cubs or whatever team that's just kind of floating around may say, "Oh, there's a reason." There's a jolt, and you see that happen all the time in baseball. And
Mm-hmm.
we will get back to my thoughts of the post trade deadline Padres, which has been very strange. But
Mm-hmm.
first, I want to just bring this up. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say you're hanging out with a few friends and you're putting back a few drinks and a few become too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. But nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. What's the worst that can happen? You know what the worst that can happen is? Well, I don't know. What are the odds that you're going to get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? What, your insurance goes up? Or you can lose your license? Or you can lose your job? Or you can total your car? Or you could kill someone? Everybody knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic, often deadly. However, that doesn't stop everybody from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. If you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe. Plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Get sober or get pulled over. We are here with Javier Reyes, who is the host of Locked On Padres. Now, the San Diego Padres pulled off the trade for Juan Soto. Now, one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that is a proverbial kick to the sack on this one, I'm not sure if I just got to say mature rating on this, but one of the things that was so amazing was like, oh, you're going to get Machado in his prime,
Mm-hmm.
Soto in his prime, and Tatis in his prime. And
Mm-hmm.
the news of Tatis's suspension came right on top of the acquisition of Soto.
Yeah.
That we know he's going to be, even if he came back, he'd be suspended for this season and would be ineligible for the postseason. So that marvelous trio isn't going to take place until next year anyway. Tatis hasn't played this year, right? He hasn't. You'll have
Mm-hmm.
an entire year without playing him, and it takes a lot of this luster out of Tatis. And look, eventually people turn the page, and people will eventually be like, there have been suspended players who come back and they wind up playing well and everything, but it's just that magic quality of Tatis being the potential face of the Padres just isn't there anymore, and that's a bit of a bummer, at least from my point of view. But at the same time, you make that Soto trade 10 times out of 10, because the point I kept making leading up to it was Soto was the same age as some of the prospects that you would have be acquiring for him. He was
Yeah.
23 with 6 years of experience, a World Series ring, and was a World Series hero, you
Yeah.
know. And so you take that. How often does a player like that get available? That's the same reason why you signed Manny Machado. He think he has a bad attitude. He's an MVP caliber player in his prime. You sign him. The hell, have him improve his attitude. Maybe being in San Diego, a millionaire in San Diego, will improve his attitude. But the Tatis thing kind of bummed me out. But talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on Tatis and your thoughts of Soto moving forward.
With Tatis, I think, and I mentioned this on my Twitter the other day, where My kind of vibe for it is, dang it, you doofus.
Yeah.
My vibe isn't like, you are a disgrace to the game. I want you off. Void the contract. I want him out. Now, I did intentionally put out a fake trade that was intended. Not gonna lie, I was feeling. I'm working. I'm doing my work at the office, which is my house, and then looking up some card info and reading up some comics that I need to do for work. I'm like, let me fire one off. Let me get some engagement because I know this will make people mad. And I offered, Fernando Tatis for a bunch of prospects from the Yankees, including their best one, Anthony Volpe, who's a shortstop.
Yeah.
I think that the only thing about that mock trade that I do stand by is that it has at least become a lot more feasible that the Padres don't immediately hang up the phone on stuff. I think especially if he is to make another mistake. At his age to already have, strike one, like if he gets another pop for another PED sort of thing, then that's an entire season, and let alone the legacy and the kind of damage it does. I don't really care to get involved in PED discourse. I just think whatever. I think this stuff is weird, and I think that we don't get me wrong, you shouldn't be cheating using PEDs, but I think we overrate sometimes that, like, James Karinchak of Cleveland, who the Padres just played, was a spider tack merchant, right? Like with the
Yeah.
sticky stuff. Now he's back and he's great. It's almost like athletes who are good at sports might just be good at sports. You know what I mean? That you can't exactly fake
Yeah.
talent. But that's just me. Bottom line is, at his age, the fact that the Hall of Fame might be out of reach already because of this, it's just so early for it to happen, and it's compounded by a bunch of other mistakes. Usually in baseball, whenever they talk about people being bad clubhouse presences, whenever they talk
Right.
about people being, a little bit toxic or he rubs us the wrong way, I never trust baseball with those things. I trust the NBA, I trust the NFL. And the reason for that, as I've said many times on my show, is because you have a lot of Freddie Freeman reasons to be hating on other players. Oh, we didn't get along, and I had to show him the ropes, and you don't have your hair that long, you don't have eye black, the jewelry, you don't put the glasses over the A. That's why I do not usually trust baseball when it comes to these things. However, with Fernando Tatis Jr.'s situation, the way the Padres came out with Joe Musgrove and Mike Clevenger, even, who got busted in 2020 for his errors and whatnot, and Manny Machado, who once upon a time was a problem guy and whatnot, and AJ
Right.
Preller, like there were so many people out there being very like the comments they made weren't just, yeah, you know what I mean, like we're really disappointed and frustrated, but we're rooting for him and hope he gets back. It was like, hey, like he don't want to be here, to paraphrase Manny Machado, right? Like it's whatever, we'll be without him. I thought that was really damning. And when you combine that with the fact that he's had other things before, with not electing to get shoulder surgery, which he is now, but he didn't do that in the offseason, right? With the fact that he had the motorcycle incident, right? With the flare up in the dugout last year that went viral on social media with Manny
Yeah. I
Machado,
was going to bring that
right?
up. I was bringing that up regarding Machado. Yeah.
Yeah, there's, unlike the Freddie Freeman with Ronald Acuna thing, unlike the Marlins with Jazz Chisholm, who what he wears to the ballpark allegedly is annoying people, right? All these coded language that makes baseball so toxic and culturally problematic. Tatis is different. We've actually seen tangible things that make me would believe players, and I know this is a long-winded point, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like that's my thing. So I absolutely think that the Tatis thing is a problem. But I will say Juan Soto, not the problem. He's been awesome. 286
Right.
average, 438 on base, which is obscene, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's hit 2 home runs. It has not been his fault at all. He has
No.
succeeded in every way. He's performed better for the Padres. Defense needs to be worked on a little bit. I think he got into some bad habits in Washington. Personally, I think he'll be fine, but I think he picked up some bad habits playing for a really bad team.
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets better there. But it's just like you said, it was supposed to be this murderer's row, and that changes a lot of things. Jerkson Profar, who he's really tight with, he's having a good season, has been pretty bad ever since the news came out, coincidentally,
Yeah.
about his friend basically getting popped for this thing. And it's rough in Padres land, but I'm not at this he's a disgrace thing. I'm just like, oh my God, you dumb fool. And like, I totally get why AJ Preller, the manager of the Padres, would be upset. He's probably like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that get affected by this. We just traded our whole farm system, and then you're not going to be here. So it's a whole lot of things. And as you can see, very passionate subject that I'm on.
Yeah. Well, do you know who didn't take PEDs? James Shields. So
Mm,
maybe you should try to trade Tatis back for Shields and see what you can get
yeah,
for him.
that's right. That's right. James Shields, just a San Diego legend, dare I say. Really, truly. Dare
Yeah.
I say the best pitcher the Padres have had since Trevor Hoffman, dare I say.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm there for the James Shields retirement ceremony. Javier Reyes is the host of Locked on Padres. There's frustration in Padre land. There was high hopes for Padres and frustration. Let me just check right now. As of right now, the good news for the Padres is that Milwaukee is still losing. I'm going to make the case that the Padres are having a perfect summer.
Ooh.
I have a metric. I use a specific metric, and I think this is the ultimate test for this. I
Hmm.
came up with this a couple years ago. It's called the summer score,
Hmm.
and here's the idea behind it: the job of a baseball team is to be a form of entertainment in the summer. We sometimes lose track of that. We lose track that this is supposed to be summer entertainment. That all summer long, whether you're at home, whether you're at the cookout, whether you're at the beach, whether you're doing something, you turn on the radio, you watch it on your device or whatever, and there's your team. And baseball is different from other sports because your team is a companion for the summer. They play 5, 6, 7 times a week. You get to know the ins and outs. You get to know the people in the bullpen. You get to know the middle relievers and utility infielders. You get to know when players are slumping and everything like that. You can't get too high for every loss. You can't get too low, but you can't. You got to sort of ride it because it's your companion for entertainment for the summer. Now, psychologically, summer begins around Memorial Day. So this is how for those of you who followed, I've referred to the summer score, but when you say, "Oh, you're first place on May 1st," who cares? It's too
Hmm.
early in the season. But starting the day after Memorial Day, that's when you wake up. It's summertime. If you look at the standings and your team is in a playoff spot after Memorial Day, that's a positive thing. Now, here's how it works. Between Memorial Day and the end of June, every day your team is in a playoff spot or tied for a playoff spot, you get 1 point. For all of July, every day you get 2 points because it's a little more. It's a little deeper in the summer. We're
Hmm.
still a playoff team
Okay.
because the Angels have a summer score because they were at first they were a wild card team
Yeah.
in early June. Every day in August, it's 3 points. You wake up, how are we doing? Oh, we're still a playoff team. We're still a playoff team. Now in September, if you are in a playoff spot in September, you get 4 points every day because, like, oh my God, it's coming. We're coming down the stretch. And along those points, if
Mm.
you're only one game back, when you wake up, we're only one game back of a playoff spot, you get 1 point because it's like, oh, we could go there today. We could be so there's that energy.
Hmm.
Now, keeping that in mind, as of right now, a perfect summer score would be 164. The following teams, as of this recording, have perfect summer scores: the Astros, the Yankees, believe it or not, the Blue Jays, even though they fired their manager, the
Yeah.
Dodgers, the Mets, and drumroll, please, the Padres.
Woo!
Not for one day since Memorial Day have the Padres fallen out of a playoff spot. If you're a Padres fan, every day since Memorial Day, how are we doing? Well, we'll be a wild card team this year. The Cardinals don't have a perfect summer score. Nope. The Braves don't have a perfect summer score. Some teams have very high summer scores who have fallen out, like the Minnesota Twins, like the Milwaukee Brewers. So they're going to look back and say, we got a high summer score, but we don't make the playoffs.
Hmm.
So, and the Orioles have a summer score of 6 because 2 days in July they were tied for a wild card spot.
Hmm.
But using that metric of every day you wake up, you check the standings. Every day since Memorial Day to right now, a Padre fan can say, "Ooh, we're a playoff team. Ooh, we're a playoff team."
Mm-hmm.
So you can make the argument with that being your metric. They are having mwah, chef's kiss, a perfect summer.
Let me
It
tell you,
doesn't feel
Sully.
like perfect summer, does it?
No, but look, let me tell you, Sully. You just haven't lost a step, like at all. Like just you still have the great bits. This is amazing. I love it. Who needs stats? Who needs fan graphs? Who needs
No.
baseball reference? All right. You know what I want to look at? Whatever stat this is, because I love it. I enjoy it. But you do make a good point that the Padres have never actually fallen out of the playoff spot, right? That's pretty good. Now I would wonder what their summer score was last year at this
Oh,
time.
you what? Let me look it up.
Oh,
I
he's
should have
got
got.
it. Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm gonna get my summer score. Summer
Hopefully this
score
doesn't
final.
result in Padres fans getting depressed.
Oh, they had a good one.
Oh, they did?
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Here it is. The final tally for 2021. Okay, a perfect summer score last year would have been 322. Okay, the following the following teams had perfect summer scores last year: the White Sox, the Rays,
Oh yeah.
the Dodgers, and the Giants.
Hmm.
Okay, only one team had a summer score higher than 200 or 200 or higher and did not make the postseason. The San Diego
Yep,
Padres
there it is.
had a summer score of 200 and did not make the postseason. Let me put it this way: the Padres summer score was 200. The World Series champion Atlanta Braves was 194.
That's
They had a better
a good
summer
point.
score than the team that won the World Series because the Padres were had a playoff spot between May 31st and June 12th. They fell out, and then from June 18th until August 22nd, and they were one game out of a playoff spot as late as September 17th. As late as
Yeah.
September 17th, a
All right,
Padre
enough.
fan could look at the standings and go, like, hey, we're
Enough.
only one game out.
Move on. I can't do this. I'm getting PTSD from this. It was rough.
200.
It was
The
rough.
World Series champion had 194.
I will say about the Padres this year, I think this is where a lot of the anxiety with where like you got to keep the foot on the pedal is coming from. And I know you attested to earlier, like, teams that win the deadline, like maybe we keep doing this every year, the teams that make the big splash, but then it's always these teams doing these little moves and that are
Yep.
still moves. Again, I criticized Cleveland earlier. They didn't make a move. And I think they should have, even if it wasn't a giant one. Like, maybe they could have got Sean Murphy out of Oakland. That would have been good for them. But I think that with the Padres, I will say with this year, that I'm hoping that guys like Drury and Bell, that things just aren't firing on all cylinders yet, and that it still has been all right. We're recovering from the Tatis thing, and I'm literally on a drive to my friend's place in DC, and I freak out, and he thinks someone died as he's driving, and I'm like, oh my god, and like that type of thing. Maybe it's just this weird phase of like almost they need to be humbled following everything, right? Like following the craziness, they need to be like, all right, look, still a lot of work. I still like a lot of the players on the team, man. I still like Darvish. I still like Musgrove. I still like Mania as a 5. I know he's been bad this year, but like as a 5, that's fine. And then you have Blake Snell performing better, and then Darvish has been very, very quietly awesome this year. I really think that Darvish has had a quietly like a great bounce back year. So there's a lot of talent, right? Like I'm really hopeful that this is a team that can rebound from it, but it's tricky. It does make me feel better that Milwaukee didn't necessarily improve at the
Yep.
deadline. Even the Cardinals attempted to do that with Quintana and Montgomery, but uh, it's just
By the way,
dicey. It's weird. Like you said, you start off the pod saying this. It is a very hard team to figure out what the heck is going on with them, right? Because at some points they're like the best team in baseball. They look amazing, and you're like Manny Machado is going to win the MVP, and blah blah blah. They have the great first game when Drury hits the grand slam and all that stuff, and then they're losing to the Nationals and they're getting shut out by Cleveland completely, and then we're all in mass hysteria. maybe that's just how the baseball season goes. Maybe that's just how it goes, how it rolls. But this is baseball, man. And like you said with the Braves, they can win the playoffs, man. I've said this 100 times. The Dodgers, absent 2020, they blow it every year. So like, I'm not overly concerned as long as they make the postseason. That's the big thing.
Let me just point out a couple of things of the summer score last year.
Okay.
The Padres were a playoff team on September 13th.
Mm.
The Cincinnati Reds were a playoff team on September 14th. The Cardinals were a playoff team on May 31st, and then not again until September 15th. And then they went on their roll and went to the wild card game.
That's hilarious. I will say with the Cards, with the Montgomery thing, it is also, I haven't looked it up, but it's also possible they have like 97 Gold Glovers on their team, so maybe
Yeah.
that helps like his earned runs go over a little bit better. But even still,
Maybe.
before then, I was a little surprised because Montgomery's like the definition of just fine. Like
Yeah.
he's a guy that's just going to go 5-6, give up 3 probably, no more, no less. If you have a good team, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome to have that guy at the back end, especially for a team that's lacking some starting pitching that they do, and they're
You know
relying
what?
on 44-year-olds Wainwright, who's still going, man. It's like someone woke him up and he's like, I'm gonna try and make a Hall of Fame run at age 45. Like, that's
Well,
what I'm gonna try and do
they
now.
just it's the 2006 World Series all over again. I'm sorry to bring up 2006 to a Padre fan, but what are you going to do? Well, what's also awesome is Javier Reyes, the host of Locked On Padres. Javi, tell us a little people where they can follow the show.
You can find me, first of all, at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. Dare I say the best Twitter handle of the Locked On MLB folks. Although Sully Baseball is
I'll
pretty
agree.
good
I'll
too.
agree.
Sully
Yeah,
Baseball is pretty good
yeah. I
too.
really put a lot of effort into
Yeah,
my
just a lot
Twitter
of
head,
effort into
Sully
it.
Baseball.
And then you can follow the account at LO_Padres, where I tweet exclusively about Padres stuff. And then follow the YouTube. I've been on a little bit of a break from the podcast, but this show is my return. My return to the top, hopefully. Hopefully this is, maybe that's why the Padres haven't been performing
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah.
I gotta get back to posting more
It's your
consistently.
fault. It's
It
your
is. It is
fault.
absolutely my fault. So everybody go check that out. I wear different shirts on each episode, and you can. That's just a reason for you to check it out. Hopefully, going to improve that video quality too. And yeah, follow me on there. I wrote about the Jeter documentary and my favorite lies from it. If you want to check that out too, at justbaseball.com. And yeah, as always, man, it's just a blast being on this show for what feels like the 95th time
There you go.
that we've done a crossover together. So yeah,
Well,
man, as
but
always, it's
it's
a
been
blast.
too long, and you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pod, same handle on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Explain to Javier Reyes why you cannot ask, nor can you get, a more perfect summer than what the Padres have given their fans. This has been Locked On MLB. We're recording this on the 24th day of August. Who knows when the heck it's going to drop? I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.